more or less 95.5 rushing yards for Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, Nick really said it. Since week 4, he's gone for less than 100 yards just thrice. I mean, 3 times. Yeah, and I said thrice because, Spirit, get into the rise. But with 17 rushing touchdowns over that span, like, the man is just unstoppable. Under 100 yards, yeah. I think Helen Keller would hit the more on that. He'd be pretty comfortable.
All right, John.
I don't know how I can follow that up. I mean, I feel like you guys covered it. Jonathan Taylor, automatic. I will add one more thing to Jonathan Taylor's advertisement repertoire. He also decided to get sponsored by what is, in my opinion, like the 4th, maybe 5th best pizza option you could have in Madison, Wisconsin, Toppers.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome into Monkey Knife Fights and Furious George's Christmas Extravaganza. I'm Dan Watkins. We have the full MKF team with the Rotowire guys here today. Connor Roundtree from MKF, Nick Whalen, and John McKechnie from Rotowire. Guys, happy Festivus. Hope you enjoyed the airing of the grievances last night. And Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. How we all doing? Connor, what's up, man? Never done a show with you before. How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. Decked out in the Christmas gear for the Bears, so it hasn't been the happiest of seasons. So right now I'm just hoping for Santa brings me a top 5 pick. Just keep losing. And fire, and I just have to say it, fire Nagy. There. Now I got it off my chest. I'm ready to do the show. All right. Thanks for the intro.
Sounds good. John, I was hoping you'd be coming to us from Hawaii today. You are our official Hawaii Bowl correspondent, but there's no Hawaii Bowl, so we have no college football to talk about, but I'm glad you're here anyway. Maybe you could give us, your favorite, Hawaii Bowl memory of yesteryear here to start the show.
I'm glad you asked, because I think my favorite Hawaii Bowl memory happened off the field. This was when Ed Oliver, now NFL player Ed Oliver, his sophomore year, Houston went out there to play. He could not play in that game because he stepped on a sea urchin. And I think that's one of the, all these guys are opting out to preserve their health and their money-making potential in the future. This guy interacted with the wildlife of Hawaii, truly embracing and immersing himself in the trip out to the Big Island. And respect to Ed Oliver for stepping on a sea urchin. Hope the sea urchin's okay, though. I doubt it was, though.
Very good and very painful. Our producer, Jay Rubin's pointing out that you have to stick your foot in boiling water to neutralize that pain. So, yeah, ouch.
What?
That sounds like it hurts a lot.
Sounds like a prank that Ruben made up. He's like, dude, you stepped on an urchin. Oh, stick it in this boiling water.
No, it's true. It's true.
Sure you don't just have to pee on it?
It happened. It's jellyfish. Come on, let's get the oceanic creatures correct.
Remedies, different animals. Nick Whalen, the master of the 10-day contract in the NBA, which is just coming to focus here in the world of sports because just so many guys are going out with COVID. Nick, any thoughts on Joe Johnson? 40 years old, just suiting up. I think it's just a great story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, huge for the big 3, right? He even said the other night after his eruption of one basket at the end of that game for the Celtics, he was like, shout out to Ice Cube, shout out to the big 3 for giving me a chance to show that I still got it. He was way overqualified to be in the big 3. So this is our first example of a player going to the big 3 who clearly doesn't belong there, dominating a old man's 3-on-3 league, and then parlaying that into an NBA contract. So obviously, as someone who enjoys the nuances like this of the NBA, of guys like Joe Johnson just randomly potentially playing in really important games in the middle of the season, this has been great. I was just telling Jason off air, Lance Stevenson has a 50% chance to start for the Atlanta Hawks on a Christmas Day game at Madison Square Garden, given the COVID situation and given some of their injuries. So, honestly, if you had told me that would be the case at the beginning of the year, I don't know if I would have believed you, but this is kind of the best case scenario for me.
Yeah, it's really crazy to see. The Celtics have 8 guys on the in the protocol right now, so Joe Johnson's going to probably be getting some decent minutes on NBA's Christmas Saturday here. And since we're talking about the 10-day contract, let's kind of make this a little Christmas themed here. If you had to pick one character from a Christmas movie, whether it's Kevin McAllister, Cousin Eddie, Buddy the Elf, Bruce Willis in Die Hard, and had to sign them to a 10-day contract into the NBA, who are you taking? Who do you think can actually put up a couple minutes for you a night if you need them in a week stretch?
Man, John can attest to this. I've probably only seen maybe one or two of those movies. Yeah, I mean, as you guys know, I'm not a movie guy. I did actually watch Elf the other day for the first time in a while. The question is Buddy the Elf huge, or is everything else just like small? Because obviously there's a lot of scenes, when he's at the North Pole and he's like way bigger than everything up there. If he's like 7'5", then then we're looking at a potential kind of Yao Ming like situation here. But then when he goes to New York, it seems like he is more normal size. But I mean, at the end of the day, Will Ferrell, fairly athletic, fairly big guy. Even if we're saying that he's like 6'3", 6'4", he at least has the size where you think, he's not going to get pushed around. He's not somebody that you're going to be isolating. You're not going to be able to back it down in the post. So I don't know what kind of scorer Buddy the Elf would be, but I think defensively, he could at least be like a Royce O'Neal type.
All right, John, who do you got?
So I guess this isn't technically a Christmas movie, but it's a holiday movie nonetheless. This person also animated, but Adam Sandler in 8 Crazy Nights, he was a really good hooper.
Yeah, great coach.
If I remember correctly, yeah, he could really Adam Sandler really flattered himself with the animated representation of himself in that movie, really hamming up his basketball skills at the gym, at the Y, whatever it was. So give me Sandler.
All right, very good.
Good locker room guy too.
Hey, the guy eat his own jock strap, right, or someone else?
I believe so.
That's right. Very good. Connor, looked like you were throwing your hands up to throw a technical foul out there. Who you got, man?
Yeah, I had Sandler too. He's animated,
I like
takes
this
away
guy.
flaws. So and if you really think about it, it's just an all around good player. And being Jewish, he'll ball on the holidays, no problem.
Very good.
So it's a win-win situation.
I love it. I'm going to go with the Grinch. Man, he steals presents. Maybe he can get out there, be a little bit of a defensive stopper for me. Swipe the ball and just kind of kick it out to someone else. So that's who I got. All right, very good. It looks like the NFL is going full steam ahead here despite COVID problems. So we do have 2 wonderful Saturday Christmas games here with some great contests on MKF. And let's kind of start with the Packers and the Browns. We don't know Baker's status yet, but we're going to just kind of pretend that Baker's going to play here. So let's start with the Packers. Aaron Rodgers, his prop this week on MKF, 255.5 passing yards for Rodgers. I mean, he's kind of running away now, it looks like, with this MVP race, Nick. Packers, Browns pass defense, 219 passing yards a game they're allowing. 255 for Rodgers kind of seems pretty easy here. What do you think about the bad man this weekend?
Yeah, I'm surprised this number hasn't creeped up a little bit. It feels like it's kind of been in this range the last few weeks. And you look, dating back now 5 straight games, Rodgers has easily exceeded this total. And he's gone over 300 in 3 of those games. I mean, the main thing for me right now is it's not really Baker Mayfield status, but it's the status of Myles Garrett, for Cleveland. I think that's kind of the one thing that you look at as a potential game wrecker for Green Bay, especially a team that's banged up on the offensive line, still won't have David Bakhtiari. But if you're the Packers, I think you got to feel pretty good about this game overall. I think that Cleveland defense has a lot of talent, but it also has a ton of injuries. They lost Takk McKinley last week as well. He obviously won't play in this game. So it looks like it's really setting up well for Aaron Rodgers to have another big day. I think you have to go more here, right? I mean, do any of you guys disagree on that?
Connor, John, anything?
I think the only way that I could see it going less, it is a possible way that this game goes in general, where the Packers just build that early lead and just kind of run out the clock in the end, and it becomes the Aaron Jones show, the AJ Dillon show in the second half. But so, Rodgers has that efficient day, he's averaging 10 yards an attempt or something, but, he only has to drop back, 20 or so times in order for the Packers to get it done. So that's possible, but I tend to agree with you, Nick, that the more is the way that I would bet this one, just because as long as this game stays reasonably competitive, like there's no way that the Browns keep a lid on Devontae Adams and company for all that long. Although I guess it is important to point out that if MVS doesn't play, that does hurt the explosive passing game part of the equation for Rodgers.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that has been their MO too, which is get up by a touchdown or 2. We saw it against your Baltimore Ravens with
that was close. That was a close game.
Right. Well, they get up by 2 touchdowns. You're like, all right, we're good. And I mean, they've done that 4 or 5 times this year, where it's just, instead of really trying to step on the opponent's throat, get up by 3 scores, really put it away. They find ways for inferior teams to hang around. So I fully expect Green Bay to win this game, but I fully expect it to not be as comfortable as it should.
Okay,
Connor,
that makes sense.
Connor, the panel here, we're all going Aaron Rodgers more, 255.5. Big way Rodgers is going to get his passing yards is going to be Devontae Adams, 87.5 receiving yards, more or less for Devontae. What do you got?
It's going to take more. just more and more and more for the Packers. It's just going to be that kind of day for me. And then if it turns the other way, I don't have much faith in the Browns counterpunch. So I think Davante Adams is going to get off to a hot start in this game. The deep ball is going to be an option, and that's going to be the turning point for me. So I'm going to take more on Davante Adams because he can realistically, he could do it on 2 plays.
Yeah, absolutely. We've seen that. Nick, John, anything on Davante to add?
I mean, if there's a touchdown prop on Davante, I would definitely take the over, especially if that's set at like 1/2. I think you could kind of see Rodgers, like if there's anybody who would make a point to have a certain player catch his record-breaking touchdown, it seems like it would be Aaron Rodgers. Would want Davante Adams to get that catch. So I think the Green Bay makes a point, if they're in a position, especially if they're, somewhere inside the 10-yard line where they always seem to have that Rodgers-Davante one-on-one connection. If MKF is offering that, I would jump on any Davante over prop for touchdowns.
Yeah, Nick, we got his fantasy prop is 21.5 fantasy.
Okay, that works.
John,
I go over on that.
All right, John, anything on Davante?
Just looking at this matchup, it was brought to my attention yesterday by fellow Rotowire compatriot Mario Puig that Cleveland likes to play pretty straight up, pretty vanilla. And last week we saw the Ravens do literally everything they could to slow down Davante Adams. They would have 2, maybe 3 guys shadowing him, and Adams still was able to get it done. So Cleveland might be leaving their guys on an island against Davante Adams, and there's just no way that ends well for the Browns. So I'm with y'all. The more on pretty much everything that's available when it comes to Adams this week.
Yeah, I don't think that goes well for anybody one-on-one with Davante. He's just that good. And then we got Aaron Jones, 48.5 rushing yards, more or less is his rushing prop. Nick, we've talked about this many weeks here on these NFL preview shows, is that Aaron Jones has just been kind of taking a step back this year a little bit, whether it's injuries, whether it's A.J. Dillon emerging. What do you like out of Aaron Jones this weekend? 48.5 rushing yards.
I mean, the number is now low enough that I may be inclined to go more here, but as you alluded to, Dan, I still feel like Green Bay is totally fine splitting the workload, if not maybe putting it in favor of A.J. Dillon, especially at this point in the season. I think of the two, Aaron Jones is obviously a little bit more fragile. I think at this point, if you're Green Bay, and it's looking like you're going to win this game, I mean, you're firmly focused on not only getting the 1 seed, but making sure you are fully healthy, or as healthy as you can be heading into the playoffs. So I think the turning point in the season was when Aaron Jones got hurt in that Seattle game. And since he's come back, he hasn't really grabbed a hold of that full workload that he had through the first 8 or 9 weeks of the season. We're starting to see more integration of A.J. Dillon. I think that's totally fine. I think that's the reason that you have A.J. Dillon. That was kind of the cliche when they drafted him, is like, oh, that's the guy you want running the ball in late December and January. Well, here we are. It's late December. And I think that's exactly why Green Bay has A.J. Dillon. I think Aaron Jones, obviously still a lot more dangerous on passing downs. He's still somebody that just has that kind of, jump off the page ability to just slip through tackles. It's kind of hard to quantify like why he's so good, but he just is. With that said, I don't see them pounding him on the ground in this game. I think this is a game where if like John said, Green Bay does get up and they do their usual, run out the clock in the second half, I think it's A.J. Dillon who gets the lion's share of those carries. So even though this number is a little bit lower than I'd like, I'm inclined to go less here.
All right, Connor, what do you like out of Aaron Jones this week?
I have to take the less. If I'm looking at the numbers, right, he's had 7 or less carries in 2 of the last 4 games. He's gone under this line in 3 of those 4, less than this line, pardon me, in 3 of those 4 games. So it's not looking good. Cleveland's rush defense ranks in the top 10. And I really do believe that passing the ball is the way that Aaron Rodgers is going to find success in this game. So for the game script I'm projecting, I don't see Aaron Jones getting the touches that he's going to need to eclipse that rushing line. So I'm going to have to hammer the less on that one.
John?
Yeah, it's tough to see this line, see who it's for. Aaron Jones, a guy that we have just such high expectations for, but like you guys have been mentioning, that the production hasn't really matched the star power of Aaron Jones thus far this season. And now we've seen the workload split become an issue, and this is also a pretty tough matchup as far as the run defense in Cleveland is concerned. So I'm going to take the less on this one as well.
All right. Then we got Nick Chubb, 85.5 rushing yards for the Cleveland running back. Having a very good season before he kind of got injured there, kind of derailed a little bit, but he's back now. That's a pretty nice number at 85.5. Connor, what do you expect out of the Browns running game this weekend?
I think they're going to have to hammer the ball. You know, Baker Mayfield, he's just been so inconsistent, less than 200 yards in 2 out of his last 3 performances. And that really puts a lot on Nick Chubb's shoulders. And we saw that turn into 91 yards, a touchdown last week on 23 carries. So when he's got up over 20 carries, he's usually up over 100 yards. So I like him to get up, and I like him to eclipse both those numbers. And I just think that's a really sweet spot on Monkey Knife Fight right now. So that's one that I would get on sooner than later.
John?
Yeah, with Chubb, you know, you worry about Cleveland's offensive line. They've been either banged up or on the COVID list a lot. I mean, Jedrick Wills and J.C. Tretter's still there, but if they get Jarvis Landry back this week, maybe it's a little bit more of a balanced offense. If Kareem Hunt stays on the COVID list, then, you know, I think all signs point to Chubb seeing 20-plus carries yet again. So I'm expecting high volume, reasonable efficiency, but Chubb also has that home run hitting ability. So I think with that much volume, that many bites at the apple, I think Chubb hits the more here.
And Nick, more or less on Chubb?
This number is a little bit higher than I would like, especially with the inconsistency, you know, that Chubb has shown since kind of getting banged up midway through the year. It's basically been like every other game he's been over this number. I mean, Green Bay should have Kenny Clark back. That's a big factor. I think that was a big part of the reason that Baltimore, you know, was able to be a lot more effective than we expected with a backup quarterback last week. But I'll join these guys on the board. Nick Chubb is awesome. I mean, it felt like this past week against Vegas, you know, the Raiders knew that the Browns were running the ball every single play, essentially, especially in that first half. And, you know, even though Chubb would get stuffed like every other carry, he was still finding ways to rip off these 12-yard runs, even when all 11 guys on the defense know exactly where the ball's going. So, you know, like John said, with the quarterback situation should be better. The receiving situation should be better. Should take some of the pressure, at least, off of Nick Chubb and open up some more lanes. So this is the Packers defense that I still don't fully trust. So I'm fairly comfortable going more here.
So we don't know exactly yet who the Browns quarterback is going to be. So I'm just going to make up some lines here. We're going to do guess the lines here, which is just one of the fun parts about this show. If it's Baker, let's set his line at 195.5. More or less, Baker's averaging about 216 yards per game. The Packers giving up right around that same area there. And then if it's Nicky Mullins, let's say his number's 160.5, more or less. He finished with 147 yards against the Raiders this past week. So what do you like out of the Browns passing attack, John?
Well, when it comes to Baker, nobody thinks he's good anymore, and rightfully so. He just has not performed at a particularly high level this year. But I think with the way this game sets up and with potentially the full complement of pass catchers, I would take the more than 195 when it comes to Mayfield. And Nick Mullins, in a touching tribute to fellow Southern Miss quarterback Brett Favre, he would throw a lot of interceptions, but I don't think he would throw for a lot of yards or touchdowns in this one. So I would take the less on Mullins. I think that would go very poorly for him out in Lambeau in the elements on Saturday night.
All right, Nick.
Yeah, I feel the same way. If it is Baker, and it seems like that's still probably the most likely outcome, his quarantine is set to expire today. And then at that point, we should have a little bit of a better idea what his status is going to be. But, it's not like he was out 5 weeks here and his shoulder can heal up. Like he just hasn't really looked healthy. He hasn't looked comfortable in quite some time. Even that game against Baltimore where he almost got to 250 yards, he completed less than half of his passes. Like he just hasn't looked good. And I think this Green Bay defense, even though I don't trust them, the defensive backfield, I think has weirdly become a strength for the Green Bay Packers, which is not something you have been able to say in a very long time. And regardless of whether Mayfield is fully healthy or not, I mean, Donovan Peoples-Jones as your number 2 guy, Jarvis Landry, who's been super up and down. I think it's actually kind of a mismatch, pretty heavily in favor of that Green Bay defensive backfield. So, I can see this being a frustrating afternoon if it is Mayfield under center, another one of those games where he's 14 of 29 or something passing.
And Connor.
Well, when I look at Baker's numbers this season, when he's over 30 attempts, which he's been in the last 2 weeks, he's gone over 200 yards in most of those, all but 2, and then eclipsed 300 yards once. Now, I don't think he's going to have a 300-yard performance by any means, but Man, that's a good line you set there, Dan. I'll give you all the credit for that one. That's a tough one. 195 with Landry back. I'll take the more on it. I see the tight ends coming into play. I know Hooper's he's out, but Njoku, obviously we saw a touchdown last week. Mullins getting that one to Bryant. So I do think Baker can hit the 196. I do, but Nick Mullins, no way.
All right. Very good.
Little faith in Nick Mullins.
Sounds good. And then your nightcap, we got two teams heading in opposite directions. The Colts are surging after just beating the Patriots last Saturday night. And then the Cardinals, who are just falling apart after losing to the Rams, then losing to the Lions, just absolutely just going downhill here. But we got a couple contests here in this one. Let's start with Carson Wentz, who it seems like with the Colts, the less he does, the better for them. But his line on MKF is 200.5 passing yards. Wentz is I think he's only thrown for over 200 yards in like one of the last 5 games or something like that. I think it was just against Tampa Bay, who just about everybody could throw on. So let's start with Wentz here. Connor, 200.5, more or less.
Man, Jonathan Taylor is he's a good running back. And I've seen Arizona be susceptible in that run defense, and it's just not looking good for Carson Wentz. So I'm going to take the less there just from the projected game script. And let's be honest, does anyone on this panel have that much confidence in Carson Wentz right now?
I was like Carson Wentz's number one hater coming into this year. I thought Indianapolis was so dumb to make that trade. And then I was eating my words there for like the first month and a half of the season. I was like, wait a second, he's looking pretty good. This is not right. But he's reverted to type, making the silly turnovers and being extremely inaccurate. I think Indianapolis, kind of like what you're saying, Connor, like, they run with that game script until the wheels fall off. Like why not just limit Wentz's passing attempts and let Jonathan Taylor and the defense win you that ball game on a given week? And I think the Cardinals are soft enough to where you can execute that type of game plan. So I'll take the less as well.
Nick?
Yeah, I'm with you guys there. I mean, it's been a tale of two halves of the season, really, for Carson Wentz. I mean, he was over his first 9 games of the season, he's averaging like 245 yards per game. I think that's the period of time when John was looking like he's going to eat his words. And now these last 5 games, he's averaging 161 yards. And that's pretty much entirely buoyed by that one big game against Tampa Bay, where he went for 306. Every other game has been in the 100s. He had 57 yards last week on 5 of 12 against New England. The one thing that does worry me is we did just see Jared Goff complete 81% of his passes on this Arizona defense last week. So if there ever was a game for Carson Wentz, maybe to let it fly a little bit, it could be this one. But again, I mean, like Connor said, Jonathan Taylor at this point is bulletproof. And if you can just run that guy and he can be your offense and you control the clock, I think Indianapolis is more than happy to do that.
All right, Nick, let's hear Connor, go ahead.
Yeah, can I just add one thing on the Carson Wentz? And while he may have looked good in those first 5-6 weeks, he only started 1-4. Indianapolis wasn't winning those games. So I just want to throw that in there. He may have looked good, but it doesn't really matter.
All right, let's talk about Jonathan Taylor. If we said that Rodgers is just about running away with the MVP award, but I think Jonathan Taylor is right there as well. It's pretty much a 2-man race between these two. His prop this week on MKF is 95.5 rushing yards. Nick, we've just talked about how this is pretty much the only thing the Colts do is just pound the ball, and they pound Jonathan Taylor. So tell us a little bit about your Wisconsin guy.
Well, I don't know if you guys get the University of Wisconsin Credit Union commercials out east. You guys do?
No, but I'm.
Oh, okay. I thought that was John. Okay.
Caught a couple of them last week.
Very popular in New Jersey.
Well, I mean, you never know. I don't know how global UW Credit Union is, but it's not good. I'm just going to say that. I think his acting skills are actually kind of hurting his MVP case right now. I don't know how much that's being factored in to the odds, but on the field, he's obviously been fantastic. I mean, last 6 games, he's had 145 yards per game. Ripping off long runs left and right, sealed that game last week, with that 70-yarder against New England. You kind of have to expect more of the same, right? I mean, his floor essentially over these last 10 games, like his worst game was 70 yards on 16 carries with a touchdown. I mean, he has a touchdown streak that dates all the way back to week 4. I mean, it's been incredible. I think he fully deserves to be in the MVP race. And I know it kind of seems like Rodgers is running away with it, but the way that, I mean, these odds move so dramatically week to week. Like Brady was running away with it. There's a bigger margin between Brady and Rodgers going into last week than there is Rodgers in the field now. So all it takes is like a bad Rodgers game, the Packers trip up and lose to Cleveland, and Jonathan Taylor runs for 175 yards in a win at Arizona. All of a sudden, maybe he's going to be the favorite heading into next week. Like, I still think this thing is pretty wide open, especially if Rodgers is content to go talk about horse dewormer, on national television. So I'm pretty much blindly going to go more on any Jonathan Taylor prop at this point, especially if it's under 100 yards.
All right, very good. And you bring up his acting skills. I haven't seen the commercials, but I don't know. I doubt his acting skills are any worse than Rob Gronkowski's on these the Army insurance commercials that that is just some of the worst ads I've ever seen. And
are those national ads, or is that only here in the Northeast?
I think those are.
Yeah, the USA is national.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see them everywhere.
Okay.
Jason, maybe I'll send you the link to the Taylor ad.
Maybe even I was going to say, Connor, in Canada, do you get those USAA commercials?
I'm so lonely right now.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe Connor can tell us a little bit about a Tim Hortons commercial or something in a minute. But Connor, what do you like? More or less 95.5 rushing yards for Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, Nick really said it. Since week 4, he's gone for less than 100 yards just thrice. I mean, 3 times. Yeah, I said thrice because, spirit, get into the run. But with 17 rushing touchdowns over that span, like, the man is just unstoppable. Under 100 yards, yeah. I think Helen Keller would hit the more on that and be pretty comfortable.
All right, John.
I don't know how I can follow that up. I mean, I feel like you guys covered it. Jonathan Taylor, automatic. I will add one more thing to Jonathan Taylor's advertisement repertoire. He also decided to get sponsored by what is, in my opinion, like the 4th, maybe 5th best pizza option you could have in Madison, Wisconsin. Toppers. Pizza de Roma, Ian's, something better.
He
someone
bought a
needed
bunch
to
of Toppers
advise him on the
locations.
pizza. Oh, he did. Okay.
Yeah. So he's
are
in bed with Toppers. Yeah.
He's a franchisee. In Athens, Toppers is a totally different place, but that's for another show.
All right, we'll save that for the college show next week. I will definitely be asking questions about that. But let's talk about Kyler Murray here. 240.5 passing yards, more or less, is his prop. John, I'll start with you here. But before, I've watched Kyler Murray now for 3 years in the NFL. I can't remember one time seeing him line up under center and taking a snap from center. Does it happen? I don't think it exists.
That doesn't even calculate in my brain. I can't picture that.
No, that's like I don't know, like Fred Flintstone, like going between like a dinosaur's legs or something. Just like the size mismatch between him and the center. Just the physics are impossible. So yeah, no, he doesn't line up under center. He's usually in the shotgun, and usually he throws for a lot of yards. I know that the way we've kind of set up this game, we're thinking that Indianapolis controls the clock and grinds it down with the run game. But I think that Arizona's going to have to throw it. I know they don't have DeAndre Hopkins anymore, but you still have Christian Kirk, you still have AJ Green, Zach Ertz, Rondale Moore. The list goes on. I think there's still enough around Murray, and I think that Murray's the way to get this done, especially if James Conner's at less than 100%. This tends to suggest that Murray's going to go for more than 240 in this one.
All right, Connor.
Yeah, I have to take the more as well. I mean, 257 last week, 383 the week before. And if we look at the Colts defense, they're averaging a more than 234 pass yards per game. So I think the numbers are all there to line up for him to go out there and sling the rock and be pretty successful doing so.
All right. And Nick.
Yeah, I mean, I'll go more. I think it actually ends up being, kind of a potentially ugly game here for Arizona. I think missing DeAndre Hopkins was a much bigger deal than maybe we even expected against Detroit last week. I mean, Rondale Moore still questionable for this game. Obviously, like John said, James Conner is questionable. If either of those guys miss this game, I mean, you're removing another really key weapon from that offense and asking, Kyler Murray to do even more. And I mean, the one thing that concerned me last week is some of the, and I've said the same thing to John about Lamar Jackson, who I don't think has been fully healthy for a while either. It's like these guys are taking sacks that they almost never take. Like there were a couple plays where you're watching it like, oh, Kyler's going to get out of this. He's going to throw it downfield for 30 yards like he normally does. And he's like getting caught from behind more often. Like he just doesn't really fully look like himself. And I think that was on display a lot against Detroit. And it felt like a terrible game. And then you look up and he has almost 260 yards. So, I actually like Indianapolis in this game, but I think it could be another kind of sloppy one where Kyler Murray has to throw Arizona back into this game. And while they ultimately lose, it could be a big yardage day for him. So I will go more.
All right, very good. Let's move on. It's time for our award-winning 2-minute drill here on MKF. We got a wonderful smorgasbord of Sunday games between the Pats, Bills, Bengals, Ravens, Chiefs, Steelers, Rams, Vikings. There's a lot of fun games, fun contests here on MKF for this Sunday, the day after Christmas, when you're in a food coma, playing with all your new presents, new toys, new video games, whatever you're doing. But let's start with our 2-minute drill here. Connor, I'm going to start with you. Tom Brady, 285.5 passing yards. They're taking on the Panthers, more or less.
More.
All right, John, Antonio Brown, no Chris Godwin, maybe no Mike Evans, 73.5 receiving yards, taking on the Panthers, more or less.
And take the less. He's been out for too long.
All right, John, Rams, Vikings, Matt Stafford, 285.5 passing yards, more or less.
More. The Vikings just invite crazy games. I think Stafford's going to have to throw a lot. Give me the more.
All right, Nick, I meant to go to you there, but we'll go to you now. Cooper Kupp,
All right.
8.5 receptions, more or less.
More City. He's in the Jonathan Taylor zone for me. Whatever the number is, I'm going more.
All right, Connor, Kirk Cousins, taking on those Rams, 255.5 passing yards, more or less.
I'm going to have to take the more on that. He's slinging the ball right now. They need a win.
All right, John, Justin Jefferson, 83.5 receiving yards, more or less.
Take the less. I fear that the Jalen Ramsey effect will hinder Jefferson. That's going to be a huge matchup. But I'm going to take the Ramsey side there. Take the less.
All right, Nick, Josh Allen, Buffalo Bills coming to Foxborough, 250.5 passing yards, more or less.
I'm going to go less. Can't take much from that last New England Buffalo game, but I still think New England has the Bills number here, and it's going to be a frustrating day for Josh Allen.
And Connor, Stephon Diggs, 5.5 receptions, more or less.
That New England defense is really good. Bill Belichick knows how to take away that top target. I'm actually going to take the less on that.
All right, very good. I think we did that in 2 minutes, too. Very good, guys.
That's our best one yet.
All right,
2
great
minutes.
stuff.
You guys left like 36 seconds on the clock. Like this is a guaranteed. Rodgers
Take a knee and run it out.
Field. Yeah, gets in field goal range. I think it's an L for you guys. 128.44 was the total time, down to the millisecond.
All right. Very good. Very good. All right. Let's talk about some NBA here. I don't think we have any props yet.
Lies. That's not true.
Lies?
We have the
them?
great New York Knickerbockers have props, and so do the Atlanta Hawks. And that is about it.
All right. Very good. So we got something for that noon game. Nick, what are you expecting here between the Knicks and the Hawks?
Well, again, I'm hoping that Lance Stevenson is on full display as like the number one option for the Atlanta Hawks, who lost both DeLon Wright and Cam Reddish to injuries during last night's game. So we'll see if either of those guys are able to play on a fairly quick turnaround. I mean, there's not a whole lot we could say about this Christmas Day slate. Normally we get some of the most meaningful and memorable regular season games of the year, which every single year it feels like the regular season gets more and more devalued. But we get these big time matchups that often kind of foreshadow maybe what we expect in the playoffs or ultimately in the finals. This Nets Lakers game was supposed to be this huge showdown. And, the Nets are limping in with Kevin Durant still on the COVID list. We don't know if he's going to be able to make it back. The Lakers just got blown out by the Spurs, who are terrible. Last night, Anthony Davis is injured. They're a complete mess. Like, there's really not one team on this slate that's coming in like at 100% full strength. Like the Suns are probably the closest thing. The Mavs are going to be without Luka in the late matchup. So unfortunately, it's kind of a mess. I mean, luckily we have a few NFL games to maybe distract us from this NBA slate, but I think the Knicks are shaping up to be the much healthier team in that early game. So if you want to pick a side there, I actually like the Knicks at home here.
I just want to go back to the Staples Center thing from last night. They say goodbye to the Staples Center because it's changing to crypto or something tomorrow.
Crypto.com arena, baby.
On Christmas Day. But I just found it kind of funny the way they were acting, like saying like basically like it was being demolished.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of like the Kingdom situation back in the day.
It was a little weird because, I mean, you're saying goodbye to a sponsor that's no longer paying the bills. I think you can calm down there.
There was something very similar when M&T Bank took over from PSI Net, which I don't know what that company is, but it was a dark day in Baltimore when it changed to M&T Bank.
PSI Net? What is that?
I think it was late 90s, so like .com bubble type stuff.
Yeah, right.
Hey, we got internet. We'll give it
For what
to
it's
you.
worth,
Yeah.
PSI Net's the first thing when you Google PSI Net, it says, quote, "We have everything you need right here."
Really?
It's like I'm inclined to believe them.
Look at
I
that.
have my doubts, but that's okay. That's where they filmed The Replacements, which I watched last night.
Oh, wow,
Prophecy
shout
is
out Keanu
unmistakable.
That's all.
Yeah.
Shout out
Has anybody
Keanu.
seen the new
Never
Matrix
seen
yet?
it.
I have.
No.
Disappointing.
Disappointing.
I figured as much. I mean, only one of the first three were good. So,
all right. Very good. Nick, here you go. Shams is reporting the Celtics planning to sign 11-year NBA veteran Al Farouk Aminu, adding to their collection of this great 2012 team that the Celtics plan on rolling out on Christmas Day. So I guess with this, the 10-day contracts in the news, Nick, maybe you could give us a couple names here to end the show of just some of your favorite 10-day contracts in NBA history.
Man, I mean, I actually prepped some guys that I was hoping would sign 10-day contracts. And I think the best way to do that is to just like go back and look at recent draft classes and like the guys that I really, really believed in at the time who for some reason have fizzled out. I've actually been praying that the Bucks have a COVID outbreak that's bigger than the current one they have. So they're forced to bring in, like, the dream scenario is Brandon Jennings going up against the Boston Celtics on Christmas Day for this Bucks team. Like, I think he would happily do it. He would happily, fly to Milwaukee. He could get here pretty much instantly, play in 3 or 4 games, then head back out west, focus on his clothing brand. Larry Sanders is another player who, even when he like kind of washed out of the league 4 or 5 years ago and decided to focus on skateboarding and smoking weed, there was always this belief that like he was young enough that maybe he would eventually come back, like that fire for basketball would return. No, that did not happen. But he still is only 33. And I think they're like one DeMarcus Cousins injury away from potentially having to give Larry Sanders a call here.
I like it. All right. Actually, we do have a couple props. That just
I was just saying there's a couple props. I just wanted to also add
that
that I'm surprised that Mike Bibby didn't get a reference in the 10-day.
We'll have the entire board participate here. But let's start off with Nick. James Harden, 26.5, more or less.
I'm going to go more. I mean, I think until we know what Kevin Durant's status is, this could end up being a pretty good value if Durant doesn't play. I mean, obviously Harden hasn't had the explosive scoring games that we saw during his Houston days and even at times last year, but he's continued to round into form quietly. He's been better and better as the year goes on. So I like the more there.
All right, Connor, Steph Curry, 29.5, more or less, taking on the Phoenix Suns on Christmas Day.
Oh, that's a tough one. Averaging just over 27.5 points this season, but I'll take the more on that. Big day, big show for Steph. Why not?
Love it. Julius Randle, John, 22.5 points for the Knicks, big man, taking on the Atlanta Hawks, more or less.
Proven to be a fraud. Proven that last year is flash in the pan. Give me the less.
All right, love it. And finally, Nick, John Collins, 19.5 points, more or less.
Oh my God, I can't get over McKechnie calling Julius Randle a fraud. That's the take of the day so far. I'm going to go more. I'm going to go more on John Collins. That would be like me just like handing out hockey takes. John Collins is essentially the only healthy regular for Atlanta. Bogdanovich is back, but he's been on a minutes limit these last couple of games. I think we're getting an artificially low number here because John Collins picked up 4 fouls like early in the third quarter last night, and it ended up having a much worse game than we were expecting. I think he could play 40+ minutes in this game and pretty easily cruise to 20+ points.
All right, very good. So before we go here, let's tell everybody where you can find us. Connor, where can they find you?
You can find me at Sports with Three Folks on Twitter and Instagram at Connor Scott Bruce. That's as easy as it gets.
Very good. John, where can they find you?
You can find me on Twitter at John's Tailgate. Forgot for a second what my Twitter handle was, but yes, Johns_tailgate. And you can find my work over at rotowire.com/cfootball. That's where most of my stuff resides.
All right. And Nick, I know you got a little bit of a different Twitter handle, but
nope, I don't have Twitter. Don't have Twitter. Nope. Not doing this.
Come on, for the people, for the holidays.
Fine. Just because it's Christmas. It's at my last name, but you just flip that L to a 1. WHA1EN.
Very good. I love it. And you guys can find me at Dan Watkins Radio. Thank you for watching. Enjoy. Good luck on your contests. Enjoy your holiday. Merry Christmas. Happy Festivus. Enjoy the rest of the year if we don't talk to you. So thanks, guys. Thanks for watching.